Alright guys, welcome to the next series in our set review. This is for Hour of Devastation, the second set in the Amonkhet block. We've got some pretty awesome cards to talk about today. We're actually a little bit behind. We started preview season last week. I just hadn't gotten around to actually putting together some videos. So what we're going to do today is we're actually going to take a look at all of last week and kind of talk about each card individually. There's a couple different new mechanics that we're going to talk about. We've got a couple different creatures, and then we've also got some new old mechanics from Amonkhet that have been used in a slightly different way. So we're going to get to those and kind of see what was being used and how they're being used in Amonkhet and how they're being used in Hour of Devastation. But before we go too much further, I do want to let you guys know that it'd be awesome of you if you could hit the subscribe channel on our YouTube page at youtube.com/72DPI online. That helps us out a lot. It's a free, excellent free way to help support the channel. It does not cost you a dime, and we really do appreciate it. And with that, let's just jump right in. So these were 3 cards that were spoiled. I don't believe they were actually released via Wizards, but these were the 3 beginning cards that were spoiled, and so these are kind of old news, but I still wanted to talk about them because I think they each have their own place for the most part. So the first card is the big baddie, Nicol Bolas, God Pharaoh. He's 4 generic, blue, black, and red for a 7 loyalty planeswalker that has 4 abilities. So Wizards is taking another stab at making a 4 ability planeswalker to actually have some type of meaning, and I think they might have done it. This is even though it costs 7, yeah, this is definitely a game ender. So you can pull +2 Bolas. Target opponent exiles cards from his or her hand, and then exiles cards from the top of his or her library until he or she reveals a non-land card. Until end of the turn, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. So yeah, +2 automatically going up to 9, and you get to cast a free spell. Why not, right? And then it also has another plus ability, +1. Each opponent exiles 2 cards from his or her hand. So you're immediately digging cards out of the player's hand. Great for control matchups where your opponent's got a handful of cards. You can whittle their hand down, or if they don't have a hand, or you don't feel threatened by their hand, maybe you've seen what's in their hand prior to casting this, and you want to just go ahead and +2. Yeah, easy way to build loyalty. So the negative abilities. So this -4, Nicol Bolas deals 7 damage to target opponent or creature an opponent controls. 7 damage. So you can do that immediately. So 7 mana, deal 7 damage. You still have a 3 loyalty planeswalker. Not too shabby. I mean, it's 7 damage, so that's not, that's definitely, within striking distance. Takes down a lot of different things. And the simple fact is you can -4 it, right? Get rid of something immediately, and then +2 cast something, and then immediately -4 it again, and you still have a planeswalker available. Obviously, it's at 1, but you've dealt 7 damage to 2 things, stole some type of permanent or non-land thing from your opponent's deck, cast it for free. So what else could there be, right? Oh no, there's more. -12. Exile each non-land permanent your opponent controls. That's right. Their stuff, not yours. It's gone. Gone, 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 gone. I don't think it's going to take quite... I don't think you're looking at doing that on a regular basis, because obviously if you just -4 3 times, they're dead. So -4, deal 7 damage to your opponent, +2, -4, +2, +2, -4. So I mean, there's definitely a set track for this thing. So I'm not quite sure. I know they wanted to exile permanents and things like that because the original Bolas did a similar effect, but I don't see the reasoning behind doing it, right? If you've got 12, right, you've got what, 4 and 4 is 8. You've got enough to kill your opponent. So I don't know why. I don't know. That's just me. So at any rate, let's see here. So, and I guess that would be you. Yeah. So anyway, let's move on. So Samet the Tested. So this is another Planeswalker. Brand new, never been before seen, talked about, heard from, or anything like that. 2 generic, 1 red, and 1 green for a 4 loyalty Planeswalker. +1 up to 1 target creature gains double strike until end of turn. So, I mean, 4 mana to give something double strike. Obviously, if you don't have anything on the board, +1ing, you can +1 to anything. -2, and she deals 2 damage divided as you choose among any 1 or 2 target creatures and or players. So you can spread out the damage, ping 2 things, take down a 2 defense creature, whatever you want to do. Unfortunately, those 2 things for 4 mana just don't seem very cost efficient, right? Especially with a dual colored walker. I mean, it really, with the second ability, you're looking at what, 1 mana, 2 mana tops in red, and then the first one, the +1 ability to give 1 creature double strike. I mean, that's another 1 mana ability. Heck, I've got 1 mana instant spells that grant double strike and draw you a card. So, and that's 1 mana. So this is not really that strong. Maybe we'll get something in the ultimate here. So -7. So what? Drop it on turn 4. Turn 4 will have 5 mana or 5 loyalty, 6, 7. On your 8th turn, you can search your library for up to 2 creatures and or planeswalker cards and put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So, not the worst ability in the world. It does find Bolas, so that's a thing. It's kind of you have to have a way to protect her, right? So being able to protect her is going to be the biggest concern, because obviously she doesn't create tokens, she doesn't bounce anything, she doesn't stop anything from attacking her, and she doesn't create anything to get in the way. So it's very difficult, for this walker to stay alive. So you're going to have to really have some good ground game. Obviously, if you're going to play the Bolas Planeswalker, you're going to be in red, so adding a 5th or 4th color, to your 4-color control, I guess, is what you're looking at. Maybe, who knows? But overall, I don't think it's going to work. To me, I would rather just put 3 of the Bolas cards in my deck and plan on drawing 1 of them during the game. If Bolas was my game winner, then put 4 in. But using this as kind of like a tutor on turn 6, 7, or 8, even if you ramp out quick enough, unless you've got a way to take a couple extra turns or a way to defend her with turn 1, 2, and 3, then this really isn't going to see much play. At least I wouldn't play it. So the next card we have here on the far right here is Bantu's Last Reckoning. So 2 black and 1 generic sorcery. Destroy all creatures. Lands you control don't untap during your next untap step. So this is a fantastic card, and I really hope that we're going to get a cycle of these for each god of the original Amonkhet. Just because this is a fantastic way to cost reduce something and still have it cost the player something in the future, right? So paying 3 and destroying all creatures, that's way overpowered. But if you have to pay 3 this turn and 3 next turn, dun dun dun, you're paying 6, but you're stretching it out. You got it on layaway type of thing. So fantastic design, awesome creature destruction. I love it. It's fantastic. Let's see here. So next up we have, let's see, these are the defeat cards. So this is going to be a couple different cards that we don't. Now we don't know if the actual planeswalkers are dying. That seems to be everyone's first, immediate reaction, right? Is, oh my God, Jace is the Gatewatch is dead. But no, that's not the case. They've just been defeated. So Jace's defeat is 1 blue, 1 generic, instant, counter target blue spell, and if it was a Jace Planeswalker spell, scry 2. Okay, so if you counter a Jace, you get to scry. Otherwise, if you're just countering a blue for 2 mana, not so good, not so bad. Obviously a sideboard card for your limited play in case you run into heavy blue mage. I mean, obviously it's a blue spell, so it doesn't constrict you to instant sorcery or non-creature spell like most counter spells do at the 2 mana cost. Gideon's defeat is 1 black, instant, exile target white creature that's attacking or blocking. If it was a Gideon's Planeswalker, you gain 5 life. So not as awesome as Jace's defeat. Definitely worth playing in limited and sealed for sure because it's great removal. I mean, that's how limited games are won. Attacking and blocking or attacking. So obviously getting those creatures out of the way is the best way to do it. Then we've got a Liliana's defeat for 1 black mana at instant speed, and then also a Nissa's defeat at 2 generic 1 green instant spell. Let's see here. So this is the new ability that we're seeing on a couple creatures. One of them was spoiled, so we don't have a very clear image, but we can definitely see what it says. So the first one on the left is kind of like your generic, we're testing the waters, how common level. So it's a 2/2 bear for 1 black and 1 generic, and it has Afflict 1. And what Afflict does is whenever this creature becomes blocked, the defending player loses 1 life. So it's your creature is going to have Afflict and then a number after it. So Wildfire Eternal is 1 red and 3 generic for a zombie Jackal Cleric. Those of you that are going to build your zombie Jackal Cleric tribal decks, this is a 1/4 that has Afflict 4. So whenever this creature becomes blocked, the defending player loses 4 life. So if we just look at that, we're not going to look at the bottom part of the text so far. So if we just look at that, the way this card works is you go to your attack phase, attack with Wildfire. If your opponent doesn't block, Wildfire is going to deal your opponent 1 damage. However, if your opponent chooses to block, let's say they block with a 3/3. Now, since the Afflict is going to go on the stack, they're going to lose 4 life because it's been blocked, and then combat damage, it's not going to deal its 1 damage because it's blocked by the 3 power or 3 toughness creature, and nothing will happen as far as the combat damage is concerned. Obviously, if they block with a 4/4, the Afflict 4 will still go off, so you'll still they'll still lose the 4 life. However, you will lose your creature in combat. So there's some more text here. So as whenever Wildfire Eternal attacks and isn't blocked, you may cast an instant or sorcery card from your hand without paying its mana cost. Wow. This is a fantastic card. So it punishes them if they block. It punishes them if they don't block. And you can cast an instant or a sorcery card from your hand for free. Doesn't matter what the cost is. Doesn't matter what color it is. Instant or sorcery. That's really good. So if they do block, they lose the 4 life. If they don't block, you're casting a spell from your hand. I can see this getting. This might have some standard play. You'll have to look into a couple different things, but in modern, you're looking at casting a whole bunch of good stuff. Enter the Infinite would be a good one where you're drawing your library. If you could give this thing haste on turn 4, maybe get it out a turn earlier with haste, and attack on turn 3, and play something from your hand, like Wizards has been playing, or really playing with fire in the past couple of years with these casting cards without paying their mana cost. And we've seen, with the Aetherworks Marvel just recently being banned, we've seen kind of some on the negative side, stories and things like that. Like, okay, this is just way too powerful. I don't think this is going to be quite as powerful. But being able, if you can drop this on turn 4 and turn 5, you have ways to keep it from being blocked. To get, whether it's making it unblockable, giving it menace, flying. The cartouches come to mind. It's a great way to kind of keep your creatures with some type of evasion. You can also just have some type of control as far as the board's concerned. So I don't know. There's plenty of different ways to keep this, this afloat and make it a viable creature in standard, limited. I don't think it's going to be as good in limited, because usually you don't have that many instants and sorceries. But again, if they block it, they're being punished. If they don't block it, I mean, it's 1 damage. Yeah, it's 1 damage, but if you've got an instant or sorcery, you're casting more spells in your turn. So it's definitely a really good build around me card, but overall I like it a lot. Next up, so this is the new set, the new ability Eternalize. It kind of reminds me of Embalm. It's a version of Embalm, obviously, but it reminds me of Megamorph. And I'll kind of explain what I mean as we go through these cards. So Steadfast Sentinel is a 2/3 common human cleric for 3 generic and 1 white. It has Vigilance and Internalize 4 white. And what Internalize does is you have to pay the 4 white, exile this card from your graveyard, and create a token that's a copy of it, except that it's a 4/4 black zombie human cleric with no mana cost, and you can only internalize as a sorcery. So, that's a lot of text. Just to say it's a 4/4 with Vigilance. So, the reason why I relate this to Megamorph is, if you remember, Megamorph was you lay a creature, Morph is a 2/2 creature for 3 generic mana, and then you could morph it for whatever its morph cost was, meaning you could flip it over and ta-da, it's a creature. You could do that at instant speed, so you can really do some shenanigans with combat, which is really nice. The downside to this is, with morph, you had this element of surprise. You knew you had the hidden information from your opponent that what was under there was, a morph, and it was this power, this toughness. The reason why I relate it to Megamorph is because not only does your creature get bigger, but the mana cost is bigger, right? It's greater. So when Megamorph was in standard, it really wasn't that much of a hidden information, because opponents knew if you had 5 or less mana, 4 or less, sometimes 5, it wasn't going to be a Megamorph, so it wasn't going to be something massive, right? It was just a regular morph. But if they had that 5th, 6th, 7th mana, and then you had to worry, like, okay, which one is it? How big is this going to get, kind of thing. But for the most part, Megamorph really didn't make it that far into standard. There was only a couple cards that were even possible, just because of the high mana cost. So I think this is going to be an issue, the same issue with this Eternalize. So let's go over to Dreamstealer. This is a much more interesting card. This is a rare, so it's a little bit more more effectively costed. So it's a 1/2 human wizard for 1 black and 2 generic mana. It has menace, meaning that it can only be blocked by 2 or more creatures. And then whenever Dreamstealer deals combat damage to a player, that player discards that many cards. So drop this on turn 3. Turn 4, let's say they have 1 creature in play, you go to combat and attack, they cannot block because they only have 1 creature, and you hit them for 1 damage. That player then has to discard 1 card. So people are saying, oh, well, I can, I've got, turn 3, I'll play this, and then turn 4, I'll buff it up with something like a cartouche or whatever. And that's great. Congratulations. You got there. But, where this card comes in handy is with the Eternalize. It's still pretty expensive. 2 black, 4 generic. You exile it, and then it becomes a 4/4 black zombie human wizard with that same 2 abilities, the menace and the discard on combat damage. So at the end of the day, is it that good? I mean, it's better than the Sentinel for sure. If you can get it down on turn 3, fantastic. You're ahead of the curve. You're not ahead. You're ahead of the curve as far as playing your spells on time. But as far as your attack and defense, not so much. The menace does help. It'd be great if it had flying. Death touch would be another added benefit. Just because this thing's gonna die, right? But if you drop it on turn 3, and then turn 4, you have a way of dealing with 2 or 1 of their creatures to get them down so they can't block it, then you're ahead of the game. And then obviously after it does die, turn 5, turn 6, turn 7, when this 1/2 doesn't really make much of a difference, and it's snatched a couple of cards, then you can bring it back for 6 mana as a 4/4. That late in the game, 4/4 with hardly any evasion isn't, menace becomes less and less significant the further and further you go down the game, the turn scale. So you're going to have to find a way to get it through combat, that's for sure. So, which brings us next to our Pouncer, Adorned Pouncer for 1 white and 1 generic. It's a cat, 1/1, and it has double strike. And then Eternalize 3 generic, and then 2 whites. So we know Eternalize isn't always going to cost 6, so that's good. So this will be when you Eternalize it, it'll be a 4/4 with double strike for 5 mana, which isn't too. I mean, that's not too bad. I mean, on an empty board, if you've just wiped the board, and then you can bring this guy would be a great one to bring back on turn 5. We'll get to a couple wipe spells here in a minute in white. So this one might not be a bad. People are kind of poo-pooing it for 1/1 for 2 mana, even with double strike, isn't all that good. But when you get a 4/4 out, even with first strike, that is something to be reckoned with. So so we'll move right along here, and we'll go over to our new/old ability. So Exert. So if you remember Exert from Amonkhet, this is an ability that creatures had. When you attack, you may choose to exert at whatever creature it is. So on the left, you've got the Kinhira, I think is how you pronounce it, Scrapper, which is 1 red, 2 generic, 2/3 Jackal Warrior with Menace, and you may exert him as it attacks. When you do, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Okay, so exert means he just doesn't untap during your next untap step. So it's a great way to, on turn 3, you drop this. Turn 4, let's say they have 1 creature down, and you think they're going to get that other creature down, the next turn. You can attack with this, exert it, get that extra 2 damage in, and then he just stays tapped during your next turn. Because obviously he has Menace, so he's going to get through. It's just a great way to kind of get that extra couple point of damage in. Now, one thing we didn't get with the last set is what you're reading on Oasis Ritualist, which is 1 green, 3 generic Naga Druid. It's a 2/4, and you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So, not the greatest thing at what you want to be doing at turn 4. It's got a great body as far as 2/4, so it blocks really well. You're not going to be attacking with this, but the second ability is interesting. So you can tap it and exert it, and then add 2 mana of any one color to your mana pool. So you can ramp from, like, so let's say you drop this on turn 4. Turn 5, you put your mana down, right? And then so you've got 5 mana, you tap this, and then you exert it, and then you add 2 mana. So now you're at 7. So for all you counting out there, there's at the very beginning of the episode, we talked about a 7 mana Planeswalker. So this is a way to go from turn 5 to on curve to a turn 5 Bolas. Obviously, there's more ways, faster ways to get there too, because there's 2 mana, 2 mana rocks and things like that, and mana creatures, mana elves, whatever you want to call them. But this is an excellent way to get there even faster. So I'm not sure. I haven't done the math yet, but I think with this guy, you might be able to get Bolas out on turn 4. Well, maybe not, because this guy comes down on turn 4. So this guy will have to come down on turn 3, and then, yeah, you might be able to get him down on turn 4. It's very, very possible. So, obviously, you're going to have to play green, so that's unfortunate, but, you'll have to have, like, the perfect hand, and that's kind of, like, what they're trying to go for here. So, all good stuff. At the end, it's a good blocker. So the next thing that's up, our deserts are back. So we have a desert for each color. It's a common land that enters battlefield tapped. It adds the color of mana, from the 5 colors, and then it also has cycling for 1 generic and the color of the desert. Nothing much to see here, just kind of the 5 colors and, each of the gods and all that good stuff. However, there's more. So, those are the deserts, and Wizards has put together a couple creatures that care about deserts. Now, none of these aren't, outstanding, these aren't fantastic, so I don't think these are going to be in standard. I think these are going to be more for draft and sealed. All 5 of the deserts are common, so you're going to see them a lot. And then it looks like they've got right now common and uncommon creatures that care about them. So we've got Sand Strangler at 1 red, 3 generic, Beast 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, if you control a desert or there is a desert card in your graveyard, you may have Sand Strangler deal 3 damage to target creature. Just like that. So the nice thing about this is it's saying desert. So if you go back and look, the desert cards are for all of them. So it's not, so if you can have the green one in your graveyard, and it will also trigger this ability for 3 damage to target creature. So, which is fantastic. Now, it doesn't stack, which is unfortunate, because that would be awesome. So it's either you have one or you don't. If you have 4, it still counts as 1. You're only dealing 3 damage. So let's see here. Gilded Caradon, I guess. Caradon is 1 red, 4 generic for a common beast, 4/4. When it attacks, if you control a desert or there's a desert card in your graveyard, target creature can't block this turn. So there you go. There's that. Sidewinder Naga is a 3/2 for 1 green and 2 generic Naga Warrior. As long as you control a desert or there is a desert card in your graveyard, it gets +1/+0 and has trample. So it becomes a 4/2 with trample until end of turn. So overall, I mean, not the greatest thing, but being able to put cycling in your deck and still benefit from the these abilities might be worth it. Next up, so here's the removal and kind of sub removal that we have in so far released. Desert's Hold is 1 white, 2 generic for an enchantment aura, enchant creature. When it enters the battlefield, if you control a desert or there's a desert card in your graveyard, you gain 3 life. So this Desert's Matter thing isn't just on creatures, it's also on enchantments. We'll see what else it comes on. Enchant creature can't attack or block, and its activated abilities cannot be activated. So that's fantastic. It's kind of a lockdown card with a little bit of upside for you sealed players and draft players out there. Next up, we've got another Aftermath card. This is Grind to Dust. So Grind is 1 generic, 1 black. Sorcery, put 2 -1/-1 counters on each of up to 2 target creatures. So 1 creature gets a -1/-1 counter, or 2 creatures get -1/-1 counters. You can't stack it. You can't give 1 creature 2. So there's not 100% variety there, but there is payoff. So Dust, is 1 white, 3 generic sorcery with Aftermath, so you have to cast it from your graveyard. And then once you do, you exile the spell. Exile any number of target creatures that have a -1/-1 counters on them. So this is fantastic. It's kind of a turn 2, knock down your 2 biggest things. You're not trying to, get ahead in any way. So, obviously, if you go first, you're only going to be able to hit one of their things, and most likely it's going to die. But later on in the game, being able, turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, being able to peg something and then immediately kill those 2 things. If the -1/-1 counter thing becomes a strategy, this card could see some significant play. It's all going to depend on how well the -1/-1 counters show up in this set. There wasn't a lot of it in Amonkhet, so we'll see. So this is an interesting card here, this next one, Hour of Revelation. It's 3 generic, white, white, white. So 6 total mana for a sorcery. So I'm going to read the bottom part first. Destroy all non-land permanents. Destroy all non-land permanents. Creatures, enchantments, artifacts, gone for 6 mana. Not the best priced thing in the world. It's nice that it hits enchantments and artifacts, so it's not just creatures. But here's the big but. Hour of Revelation costs 3 generic less to cast if there are 10 or more non-land permanents on the battlefield. So you're talking late in the game, I'm going to just 3 mana wipe the board. Now obviously this is, 10 or more non-land permanents. So this is going to be a huge card for Commander. Like multiplayer casual games, Commander, where you're playing with a couple different guys, arch enemy, stuff like that, where you've got 2 or 3 people playing, and each of you've got 3 to 4 things. This will happen. Now, when you're playing limited, late game, you might come into a situation where you're at a stalemate. This will get rid of that stalemate, but this is, talk about clearing the board, like a huge there's 10 things, at least 10 things, and you're clearing that board. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Cost reduction is the same thing as free cast for free. This is another fine line that they love to walk, and we'll see how it does. We'll see how it does. So here's some limited removal that's not very good, but I thought we'd talk about it anyway, just for limited and sealed purposes. So Inferno Jet's 6 mana, so 5 generic and 1 red for a sorcery. It deals 6 damage to target opponent. The nice thing is it has cycling 2, so for you sealed people, it's not that bad. Obviously, late game dealing 6 damage is a huge chunk of their life total, and if you get it early game, just pay 2 to cycle it away. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Obviously, you don't want to have, multiples in your deck. 2 is probably the limit I would go to. And then Open Fire is the last card here. 1 red, 2 generic instant. Open fire deals 3 damage to target creature or player. So open fire deals 3 damage to target creature or player. And this is probably the highest that we've ever seen one of these things cost. I don't think they'll go much higher, but the artwork's really sweet. That's about it. If you have to play this, you're not happy at all. It's just not that very. It's not costed very well. Um, I don't know, not very good. So, but know that it's out there. And last up, this is a huge win. Like, I think this is probably the the greatest. Well, I don't want to say greatest. This is one of the greatest things that Wizards has done, like, thematically, that I enjoy. So you have Amonkhet, right? And you've got these awesome artifacts that you put brick counters on, and they're supposed to be these monuments, and they're really cool, and like it's really thematic where you're building up this city. And then you have Hour of Devastation, where you have this artifact where it comes into play with brick counters, and you're removing them and destroying this pyramid or whatever. Yeah, this sunset pyramid. Awesome, awesome flavor win. I really hope there's more of these, and I hope they're better than this one, because this one's not very. This one's not very good. I mean, it's essentially what you're paying 2 for the pyramid, and then it comes into play. It doesn't come into play tapped, which is fantastic, right? It comes into play with 3 brick counters, and you can pay 2 and tap it, remove a counter, and then draw a card. So if you play it on turn 4, you draw a card, and then turn 5, pay 2, draw a card. Turn 6, pay 2, draw a card. So it's stretched out over time, so it's not too bad. So you're paying what, 2, 4? You're paying 8. Should draw 3 cards. It's a little costly, just a little costly. And then it also, you don't have to sacrifice it. Then it also, once you have, actually, you don't even have to do it then. So once you lay this card down, you can pay 2, tap it, and scry 1. So what I'm trying to say is you actually don't need to remove the brick counters to scry. You can actually scry before you do. So it's kind of up to you how you want to work that. Obviously, you can't draw and scry in the same turn, so you can kind of set up your main phase draw, or your draw for the turn with the scry if you want to do it that way. So I don't know, it's an interesting card. It'll see limited play and sealed play, but it's too slow for standard or anything like that. And then the next win for the set. This is fantastic. So the Scorpion God is 3 generic black red. So, well, let's finish the card out. So it's a legendary creature god, 6/5. Whenever a creature with a -1/-1 counter on it dies, draw a card. So we just talked about the Aftermath card that lets us put 2 -1/-1 counters on creatures. Now this guy has his own little shindig going on. He can actually pay one generic, 1 black, and 1 red, put a -1/-1 counter on another target creature. So you could wipe them out with this, between this card and the aftermath card. Granted, you're going to be in 3 colors, but still not a bad gig. Then this one also says, when the Scorpion God dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So it's a reoccurring god, which is fantastic. 6/5, powerhouse, mythic rare. So the win here is kind of twofold. The win here is the name of the god has been removed, and the people are speculating. I think this is probably true at this point, but there's going to be 3 of these. There's going to be one in red, there's going to be one in blue, and there's going to be one in black. Essentially for what you call it, Bolas's colors. This is just fantastic. Like, this is kind of like Bolas has got to them, and they've been kind of condemned, and I don't want to say tainted with black mana, but this is fantastic, like absolutely fantastic. So just overall, just such a great card, well designed, well costed. The ability is going to be fantastic for, you know, -1/-1 counters, people that want to go, you know, splash a color, you know, black, red, green has -1/-1 counters in it, so if you want to go 3-color that way, you can. If you want to go bolus colors, you know, you can go that route if you want to. But overall, fantastic card, and I hope I pull one. I really do. So that's all the cards we have so far for the week. We'll be back tomorrow with daily preview cards, spoiled, and therefore going through those cards. So I look forward to that. The episode won't be nearly as long. I apologize, this went on for a little bit of time, but we actually had some really good cards and some really good abilities to talk about. So if you guys enjoyed the episode, make sure you leave a thumbs up, get subscribed to the YouTube channel, and you can watch our live shows streaming on twitch.tv/72DPI online. Really do appreciate it, guys. Have a great evening, and we'll see you in the next video.